let's examine how we can configure HSRP on real multi-layer switches. In this example, we're going to focus on the 10110/26 subnet. So that is related to VLAN 10, where we find PC1, PC2, and PC3. And our goal is going to be to have DSW1 in this particular HSRP group and DSW2 as well. So let's first of all see how PC1 is configured within this environment. If we examine PC1 by using the ipconfig command, we can see that PC1 has the IP address of 10.1.1.10, subnet mask of 255.255.255.192, and its current default gateway is 10.1.1.1. Well, it'd be nice to know who owns that default gateway IP address. So show IP interface brief on DSW1, and I see it right there already. So that's interface VLAN 10 of DSW1 that is acting as the default gateway right now. If we go over to DSW2 and we type in show IP interface brief, we can see that interface VLAN 10 on DSW2 also has an IP address that is part of the 10.110/26 network, and it's 10.1.1.2. So it's interface VLAN 10 on both DSW1 and DSW2 that we will enable HSRP on for the default gateway redundancy that we want to have for that 10.110/26 subnet. So what we have to do first and foremost is figure out what is our IP address going to be that we will be utilizing for this HSRP group. So what we need to do first is come up with that. So what I want to do is I want to look at that subnet that we have. It's 10.110/26, and we can see that in the topology. And let's use the very last IP address in that subnet. So what is the very last IP address in that subnet? Well, the very last IP address is 10.1.1.63. Can't use that because that's the broadcast address. So it's going to be 10.1.1.62. So first and foremost, we will need to configure our end stations with that particular IP address. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We will go back to our PC. Let's open up its network connection properties. We'll see that we have our PC1 connection properties, which are hidden under there. TCP/IP. Right now we're getting an IP address from DHCP. So for this example, we'll just go 10.1.1.10. That was its IP address. We'll give it the 255.255.255.192. And the new default gateway is going to be 10.1.1. We'll put down 62. So if you're using DHCP, you'd go to the DHCP server and you'd modify the default gateway IP address for that particular client. But here, just for illustrative purposes, we'll manually change it to 10.1.1.62 instead of going all the way to our DHCP server and spending time modifying our DHCP configuration right now. So we'll just override everything with a static configuration. So let's move that out of the way. And now if we execute the ipconfig command on PC1 again, and we look at the configuration parameters, it now has a new default gateway of 10.1.1.62. So if we try to ping that IP address, we're not going to get any success out of that. Ping 10.1.1.62. Yeah, nothing right now because there is no router within the topology that is currently using that IP address, or no PC or anything. So our next task is to configure DSW1 and DSW2 for an HSRP group and give it a virtual IP address. Global configuration mode, and we said it's going to be interface VLAN 10, and the command is going to be standby. And you don't have to specify a group number if you don't want to. You don't. If you don't specify a group number, it automatically defaults to 0. My recommendation, though, as I stated, was to use the same number that represents the VLAN. So if it's VLAN 10, use group 10. It keeps it simple for you. That's what it does. So that way there, if you're ever looking at the standby configuration or verification commands, you know, based on your design guidelines that you give to yourself or that Raymond has recommended to you, that this is for VLAN 10. Just helps keep it simple for you. But it's not necessary. You don't have to do that. But be mindful that it's good to do that. And if you forget a group number, if you forget it, it will default to group 0. IP, let's give it the virtual IP address, and it's 10.1.1.62 we said. We'll hit enter, and that's pretty much it for DSW1, giving it that virtual IP address. And if we wait just a little bit, we'll see here that it will promote itself to being the active forwarder for this particular subnet. But in the meantime, let's go over to DSW2. And on DSW2, we'll do the same thing. Interface VLAN 10, and let's just copy and paste the command from DSW1. And you can see here the state change. We'll come back to that in just a few moments. Standby 10 IP 10.1.1.62. So when we look at this output here, it says that there was an HSRP state change, and it was for group 10 on interface VLAN 10, and this particular interface went into the active state for HSRP, meaning it is responsible for forwarding traffic for this particular HSRP group. If we go over to DSW2, we'll see here that there was an HSRP state change, and it's in the standby state. So it is standby, waiting to be the device that will take over if the active forwarder fails, which is DSW1. So right now, there is a heartbeat, a hello packet that's going back and forth from DSW1 to DSW2 out of these interfaces, interface VLAN 10, so that way they can keep track of each other and that they are available. So let's go back to our PC now and let's ping 10.1.1.62 and see what happens. We have a reply. Perfect. Let's look at our ARP cache. Here's our ARP cache for the 10.1.1.0/24 network, and you can see the MAC address of 000C07AC0A. So that is the virtual MAC address associated with that IP address.